Lost parents. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, filling it with familiar laughter. Peppa and George were playing in their room with the bunk bed against the wall. Mummy Pig was cooking in the kitchen while Daddy Pig read his newspaper in the living room. Everything seemed normal, but a subtle tension hung in the air. Suddenly, a strange humming sound came from the sky. Peppa looked out the window and saw a large, dark ship hovering above their house. A bright beam of light descended from the ship, enveloping their parents. Mummy and Daddy Pig froze in place with empty eyes. Aliens in silver suits entered the house through the open door. Their faces were hidden under dark helmets, and their movements seemed mechanical. They silently took the parents by the hands and led them toward the exit. Peppa and George hid behind the sofa, trembling with fear. They watched as their parents obediently followed the aliens, as if under hypnosis. The ship made a low humming sound and disappeared into the clouds. The children were left alone in the empty house. Peppa took George's hand and spoke with determination. They had to save Mummy and Daddy, despite their fear. Time was against them. Peppa found Grandpa's old star map in the attic. Strange symbols and coordinates were marked on it. George pointed to a bright star that pulsed with red light. The children built a rocket from cardboard boxes and old parts. Peppa drew control buttons while George added wings. Their homemade ship looked naive, but was full of determination. The rocket took off into the night sky, leaving a sparkling trail behind. The stars seemed cold and distant, and space greeted them with silence. Ahead, the aliens' red planet flickered. On the alien planet, everything was gray and metallic. Tall towers stretched toward the sky, with strange machines crawling between them. The air was heavy, and the sky was purple. Peppa and George snuck to the main tower where prisoners were held. Through the windows, they saw their parents in glass capsules. Mummy and Daddy Pig were sleeping deeply. Robot guards patrolled the tower corridors. Their red eyes scanned every corner, and their metallic feet clanged on the floor. The children hid in the shadows, barely breathing. Peppa found a control panel with many buttons. She pressed the green button and the capsules began to open. The parents slowly woke up, blinking and looking around. An alarm pierced the air with red light. Robot guards rushed toward the tower, their metallic voices echoing through the corridors. The family had to run immediately. Together, they rushed to the exit. Peppa led the family through the maze of corridors, while George watched for robots behind them. Their rocket waited on the landing pad. The family climbed into the rocket and took off at the last moment. Robots fired laser beams but missed. The red planet grew smaller outside. At home, dawn and birdsong greeted them. Mummy Pig hugged the children while Daddy Pig smiled proudly. The adventure was over, but memories of bravery remained forever. Peppa and George told their friends about their space journey. No one believed their story, but the children knew the truth. Sometimes the most incredible adventures happen to ordinary families. The aliens. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, filling it with familiar laughter. Peppa and George were playing in their room, where the bunk bed stood against the wall, George below, Peppa above. Mummy Pig was cooking in the kitchen, and Daddy Pig was reading a newspaper in the living room. Everything was as usual, but a light, barely perceptible tension hung in the air. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Susie Sheep stood on the threshold, but her gaze was unusually empty, and her movements were stiff. She wasn't smiling as always and wasn't jumping with joy. Her eyes stared straight ahead, unblinking. Peppa opened the door and shouted joyfully, but Susie remained silent, only slowly nodded her head. Her usual white wool seemed dull, and her pink dress looked strangely faded. The family gathered in the living room to greet their guest. Daddy Pig put down his newspaper and smiled, but his smile quickly disappeared. Something was wrong with Susie. Susie slowly raised her hand and pointed out the window. Everyone turned and saw a strange green light flickering beyond the hills. The light pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. Mummy Pig nervously laughed and offered everyone tea, but when she turned to Susie, she had disappeared, simply dissolved into thin air, leaving only a faint green trace. George started crying and hid behind Peppa. His favorite dinosaur fell to the floor and, strangely, the toy also began to glow with the same green light. Daddy Pig approached the window and looked outside. The green light became brighter, and now they could make out the silhouette of a huge ship hovering above their house. Suddenly, all the electricity in the house went out. Only green glow penetrated through the windows, painting everything in an eerie shade. The family huddled together in the center of the living room. A strange sound was heard, as if someone was scratching the glass with claws. The sound came from all sides at once, surrounding the house. Peppa held George's hand tightly. The door slowly opened by itself. In the doorway stood figures resembling their friends: Pedro Pony, Danny Dog, Emily Elephant. But their eyes glowed with the same green light. The friends entered the house, moving synchronously like robots. They didn't speak, only looked at the pig family with their glowing eyes. Their movements were mechanical and frightening. Mummy Pig tried to talk to them, but they didn't respond. Instead, they raised their hands and pointed at the family. Green light began to emanate from their fingers, too. Daddy Pig grabbed the children and ran to the back door. But when they ran out into the yard, even more friends with glowing eyes were waiting for them there. They surrounded the family from all sides. George shouted, "Dinosaur!" and his toy suddenly came to life, turning into a real dinosaur, but with green eyes. The dinosaur roared, protecting the boy from the strange creatures. The green light became so bright that everything around disappeared in a white flash. When the light faded, the family found themselves inside a spaceship, surrounded by pulsating walls. In the center of the ship stood a huge screen, on which appeared an image of the real Susie, enclosed in a green cocoon. She was alive but sleeping, and next to her were cocoons with other friends. A bodiless voice spoke in a strange language, but somehow the family understood it. The voice explained that they were studying friendship and wanted to take all friends with them to space. Peppa bravely stepped forward and said that friendship cannot exist in captivity. She explained that real friends must be free and choose who to be friends with. The green light began to flicker and dim. The cocoons dissolved, and the real friends woke up. The aliens understood the lesson about friendship and released everyone home, disappearing into the night sky. In the morning, everyone woke up in their beds as if nothing had happened. But when Susie came to visit, she told about a strange dream about green light. Everyone laughed, but Peppa noticed that George's toy dinosaur was still faintly glowing green. Peppa Pig's house always seemed like a safe place, warm and cozy. But none of its inhabitants even suspected what dark secrets are hidden here. Peppa plays in her room when she hears strange laughter from the basement. What is this sound that makes her tremble with fear? George finds an old red hat with yellow pom-poms in the garden. The little one doesn't know that this discovery will change their lives forever. Daddy Pig goes down to the basement for tools and freezes in horror. In the corner stands a figure in a bright costume with a white face. Mummy Pig prepares dinner, but her hands shake with fear. Behind the window flickers a shadow with red balloons. Grandpa Pig tells the children an old legend about a clown, but he doesn't say that this clown is real and very close. Granny Pig finds old family photographs in the attic. In each of them, the same sinister figure stands in the corner. Peppa and George play hide and seek, but someone is playing with them. Red balloons appear in the most unexpected places in the house. The family gathers for dinner, but one chair remains empty. Who has been sitting at this table all these years? At night, Peppa wakes up from strange scratching in the walls. Something moves between rooms, leaving behind the smell of an old circus. George disappears while playing in the garden. Peppa finds only his favorite dinosaur and a red balloon. Daddy Pig searches the entire house looking for George. In the mirror, he sees the reflection of a clown waving at him. Mummy Pig calls the police, but the phone only makes creepy laughter. There's no help to wait for. They're alone with him. Grandpa Pig confesses that he has known about the clown all his life. This house was built on the site of an old circus where a tragedy occurred. Granny Pig reveals the family secret. Pennywise, the clown, has lived here for 100 years. He feeds on children's fears and never lets anyone go. Peppa goes down to the basement to look for her brother. In the darkness, yellow eyes glow and a whisper is heard. We all float down here. The family finds George in the basement, but he's not the same anymore. His eyes have turned yellow and his smile is too wide. Pennywise appears before the whole family in his true form. Now they understand. The house was never their home. In the morning, neighbors find the house empty. Only red balloons float through the rooms, and mirrors reflect silhouettes of the vanished family. A new family moves into the house a month later. Children run happily through the rooms, not knowing that someone in the basement is patiently waiting for their turn. Peppa Pig's house always seemed like a safe place, warm and cozy. But none of its inhabitants suspected what dark secrets were hidden here, behind familiar walls and cheerful children's laughter. Peppa plays alone in her room when she hears strange creaking floorboards upstairs. Sounds that were never there before appear in the house. George wakes up in the middle of the night from cold breath near his ear. The little one feels someone's presence in the darkness. Mummy Pig finds broken plates in the kitchen, though no one touched them. Objects begin to move by themselves. In the hallway mirror, an unfamiliar shadow with yellow eyes flickers. Reflections show what doesn't exist in reality. Daddy Pig discovers an old clown mask in the basement. Forgotten things hold dangerous secrets from the past. Peppa sees red balloons appearing out of nowhere. Bright colors hide sinister intentions. Susie Sheep comes to visit, but her eyes have become empty and black. Even best friends can change forever. At the playground, swings rock without wind. Familiar places become sources of fear. Danny Dog refuses to enter the house, whines and hides. Animals sense danger before humans do. Terrible laughter comes from the sewer manholes. Something ancient and hungry awakens underground. Rebecca Rabbit disappears during a game of hide and seek. Some games end forever. Madame Gazelle finds a note at school. We're all down here. The teacher realizes the children are in danger. Peppa goes down to the basement and sees a clown with sharp teeth. The face behind the mask turns out to be inhuman. The clown whispers, "Want a balloon, Peppa?" The voice sounds like an echo from the darkest nightmares. The family gathers for dinner, but Peppa's place is empty. No one remembers where she is or if she ever existed. Only red balloons and children's laughter remain in the house. Echoes of the past remind of what was lost. A new family moves into the house. Children joyfully run through the rooms. History is ready to repeat itself again. In the basement, the clown waits for new friends for his collection. Some games never end. Peppa Pig's house always seemed like a safe place, warm and cozy. But none of its inhabitants suspected what dark secrets hide in the world of dreams. Peppa sleeps peacefully in her little bed, hugging her favorite toy. But something is wrong. Her smile slowly fades away. In her dream appears a familiar playground, but it looks strangely empty. The swings creak by themselves in the wind. From behind the slide appears a dark figure in a striped sweater and hat. This is Freddy, the master of nightmares who feeds on children's fears. Peppa tries to run away, but her little legs won't obey. Freddy slowly approaches, his terrifying smile growing wider and wider. Peppa wakes up screaming, but the house seems different. Shadows are longer, corners darker. Something has changed forever. In the morning, George also looks frightened. He saw the same scary man in his dreams. Brother and sister no longer feel safe. Mummy Pig notices that the children have become quiet and are afraid to fall asleep. She doesn't know that Freddy has already entered their world. Susie Sheep comes to visit, but she also looks worried. The nightmare guest visits all children in the neighborhood. At night, the house fills with strange sounds, creaking floorboards, whispers in the walls. Freddy grows stronger with each frightened child. Daddy Pig tries to calm the family, but even he feels something is wrong. The shadows in the house live their own life. In the children's room, toys begin to move by themselves. George's teddy bear turns its head and stares with empty eyes. Peppa and George hide under the blanket, but this doesn't save them. Freddy can penetrate anywhere, into dreams, into reality, into the most hidden corners of children's souls. The mirror in the bathroom shows not a reflection, but Freddy's terrifying face. His claws scratch the glass from inside. The family tries to leave the house, but doors and windows won't open. They are trapped with the nightmare guest. Freddy appears in the living room. His laughter echoes through the house. He no longer hides. Now he is the master of this place. The children realize that the only way to defeat Freddy is not to fear him. But fear has already penetrated too deeply into their hearts. In the final scene, the house looks normal. The family smiles, but their eyes remain empty. Freddy has won. He took their souls, leaving only shells. The camera slowly moves away from the house, and in one of the windows flickers a familiar silhouette in a striped sweater. The nightmare is just beginning. The screen slowly darkens, but in the silence you can hear quiet children's crying and Freddy's sinister laughter. Some dreams never end. Peppa Pig's house always seemed like a safe place, warm and cozy. But today, something has changed, and even the bright walls couldn't hide the approaching darkness. Peppa lies in her little bed, sleeping soundly after a long day of play. But her sleep becomes restless. She tosses and turns, quietly whimpering. In the corner of the bedroom appears a dark shadow with a striped sweater and an old hat. This is Freddy, a mysterious figure who feeds on children's fears and penetrates their dreams. Peppa wakes up in a strange place. Her house looks familiar, but something is wrong. The walls have turned gray and the windows are covered with cobwebs. Where am I? Thinks Peppa, looking around. The house corridors seem endless and shadows move by themselves. Freddy slowly appears from around the corner, his yellow teeth gleaming in the twilight. He doesn't say a word, but his presence fills the air with fear. Peppa tries to run away, but her little legs won't obey. She calls for Mommy and Daddy, but no one answers. The house is empty and cold. Suddenly, George appears, but he looks scared and confused. His beloved dinosaur lies on the floor, as if forgotten forever. George, what's happening? Peppa runs to her brother, but he only silently points to Freddy's approaching shadow. Freddy becomes bigger and scarier, his hat casting an ominous shadow on the walls. He feeds on their fear, growing stronger with each second. Peppa and George huddle together when suddenly Susie Sheep appears. But she too looks frightened and lost in this nightmare world. We must be together, realizes Peppa. She takes George and Susie by the hands, and their friendship creates a small island of light in the darkness. Freddy approaches, but the light of friendship prevents him from coming closer. He gets angry and becomes even more terrifying, but cannot overcome their unity. You feed on our fear, shouts Peppa, suddenly understanding the truth. But we're not afraid when we're together. The children begin to remember happy moments, playing in puddles, jumping on beds, laughing with friends. Each memory weakens Freddy. Freddy begins to shrink, his power melting under the onslaught of positive emotions. He retreats into the shadows, but his eyes still burn with malice. Remember, whispers the disappearing Freddy, I will always return when you are lonely and frightened. Fear is my food. The house begins to brighten. The walls return their bright color, but the atmosphere remains tense. Something has changed forever. Peppa wakes up in her bed but realizes this wasn't just a dream. On the windowsill lies an old hat that wasn't there before. She approaches the window and sees a shadow in a striped sweater slowly disappearing in the morning mist. Freddy is gone, but he will definitely return. Never stay alone with your fears, thinks Peppa, looking at sleeping George. Together we are stronger than any nightmare. But deep down she knows Freddy is always nearby, waiting for a moment of weakness. And the next dream might be the last if you forget the lesson of friendship and unity. The sun rises over the house, but the shadow under Peppa's bed seems a little darker than usual. The nightmare is over, but its trace remains forever.